Hello and welcome to Leadership with Purpose with Swati. Today we'll be diving into the world of facility management and purpose driven leadership. I can't think of a better name to join us other than Faine. I'm very excited. If you are at all curious about the future of facility management, you are in for a treat. Faine is not only a great sales leader, she is an expert relationship builder, and she helps companies realize the real value behind facility management. Most well run businesses, as we know, have invisible engine, which is facility management, yet it's not treated as an essential function. With Fain today, we will talk more about and unpack the real impact of having a well run facility management and how can we shift the conversation. Thank you so much, Fain. Thanks for taking time to be here. I'm very excited about our conversation, and I know that our listeners will learn a great deal from our conversation today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Let's dive in.
Sure.
Okay. So to start with, I love to learn what do you think about why is facility management an essential function and still underrated in most organizations?
I mean, I think the first thing is that when they're doing the job correctly and really excelling at the job
Hmm.
of facilities management, no one thinks of it because it just happens seamlessly.
True. So true.
It's sort of like you don't think about your air conditioning when it's working at the exact temperature, but if it's too hot or too cold, all of a sudden you're aware of air conditioning. It's kind of similar, I think, with facilities management. And, I say it always goes back to COVID, in
Hmm.
that no one thought about mail or facilities management, keeping buildings open. And then all of a sudden, as buildings had to close and no one thought about all of these pieces of the puzzle that went into making these buildings run. All of
Hmm.
a sudden, facilities went from sort of the literal back office to
Right.
just conversations with C-level executives about what's going on and how do they keep things moving forward.
That is such a great example. And yes, COVID did bring all this in highlight, right? So, could you also give us an example of a company that you worked very closely that they realized the importance of facility management and how did it help shift their business and operations?
I mean, there are a few. I will say one that I have not had the pleasure of working with directly, but I had seen the impact of the shift, which was during COVID.
Hmm.
And I'll never forget this. I got a call during COVID when none of us were looking particularly camera ready quite yet,
Right. Yeah.
and they said, "Hey, can you FaceTime? We have a real problem here. We don't know how to solve it." And they showed me entire gymnasiums full of mail and packages sitting in big bins,
Hmm.
and they
Wow.
didn't know what to do. It was a higher education person, and they had always just sort of taken it for granted that and packages came in for students and faculty and then just got distributed.
Right.
um, and it was at that moment they realized someone forgot to order shelving.
Yeah.
And it was just, I mean, it took them months to dig out from that hole
Hmm.
of not being fluent in facilities. I mean, they just took it for granted. They didn't think about all the small steps that went into creating something that seems so seamless.
Right. That's a great example. Thank you. And just to extend further on that, what do you think happened to organizations that don't pay attention to facility management? They don't want to invest in proper people and technology to run the facilities.
That's a good question. I mean, I believe they fail. They fail on multiple levels. First of all, I do think that the only way to run an efficient and well established facilities group is to
Hmm.
have the right technology. I should say technologies, right? Because whether it's a chain of custody software, an intelligent locker, the right mail machines, the right copy machines, the right coffee machines, all of that. And I think if you break it down into a few different categories, the first, which I think is real key right now, which is improving the employee experience.
Right.
So any of these things go into making or breaking the employee experience.
Hmm.
So investing in that level of technology is important just from a experiential standpoint. Then if you take that away, and everyone can be happy as happy could be, if you don't have the right data analytics and reporting, you can't manage the finances behind what you're doing or
Right.
have the right data analytics to consistently improve. So, obviously I always go back to like my world, but if you look at mail volume,
Mm-hmm.
do you need 10 people? Do you need 2 people?
Right.
And plenty of companies without the right tracking technology or understanding of volumes think they need 10. They don't have the right information to know how long it takes someone to get through a building or
Right.
what's the real volume. It's just so I think it hurts them both from a financial perspective and then from a managing the finance perspective.
Great points. And if I were to summarize what I've learned from this conversation, is that there are three factors that are driving things in facilities, right? One is efficiency. Everybody wants efficient system, right? Employee experience, which is essential. We are trying to bring our employees back to our facilities. We are trying to make it more lucrative. We are trying to have them better experience and a seamless experience so that they enjoy coming back to office and are more engaged with our teams, right? And the third is uh, making decisions from analytics, right? Making informed decisions using analytics. And all these three are playing a key role in actually running an efficient facility.
Absolutely.
So, can you help me understand if there is a misconception about facility management in your experience? What is that misconception and how can we change it?
Um, I think the biggest misconception is the lack of expertise that is needed to run a facilities team or to be in facilities.
Mhm.
I think whether you're within the management structure of a facilities team or, someone who's more of a day to day worker, the level of expertise and knowledge that goes into the facilities industry. I mean, there are degrees in it, and there are special certifications that go into it.
Right.
It's not just, oh, I know how to paint, or I'm good with my hands, so I'm going to go into facilities. There is some of that, but I think more and more it's a career. It is a education, and it's important. To have all of that. So a lot of certifications. So I do think that that's a misconception. I think people are like, oh, it's the facilities team, or oh,
Right.
it's the mail room, or I think that it's forgotten that this is for many people, a 4-year degree and continuing education career choice.
Right.
And that to me is, I think, a big misconception.
That is such a wonderful point. And again, it ties back to how can we make this a boardroom conversations in all organizations, right? It's a backbone for businesses. It's essential for their operations, and yet we are not paying it as much attention as we should, right? All great points. And I'm hoping that through our conversation, we start to shift that and see more and more engagement on that.
And Swati, I just had another thought, is
Yeah.
that I think another misconception is anyone can do it
Hmm.
if you have people.
Right.
I do think that there's this misconception that, oh yeah, we have people, doing these services, it's fine. And they tend to not think that people can be experts, and that there's a lot of innovation in that space,
Hmm.
that, you run one mailroom. Then there
Yeah.
are companies who run hundreds of
Hundreds,
mailrooms,
thousands
so
globally.
thousands.
And
So,
yeah.
I do think that that's a big component of it. Is I'm trying to think of exactly how to say it, but sometimes people just say they don't want to listen.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I years ago had a manager that said the danger in learning is knowing.
Hmm.
And so I do
That
think
is such a beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
that I do think that that's like a big misconception, is, oh, we've got it, instead of, I'll take 2 hours out of my day and let's see
Mhm.
what else is going on. Let's see what other companies are doing and hear and embrace it.
How can I make my operations more efficient? How can I bring in the people and technology that's actually needed to step up, right?
Right.
And it's fine until it's not, right? How, yeah, that's a great segue. Um, let's go deep into people and technology, and I think that will prove the point that you were just trying to make, right? There are two essential components to running a smooth facility, right? People who actually do the job, and technology, which helps them make their job efficient and provide efficiencies, right? And they go hand in hand. The collaboration between the two is really important, right? And I continue to feel that w- one doesn't replace another. It's the collaboration, right?
I,
And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, I think you said it the best way, but it is true. Every technology does have a margin of error. Like if you look at
Mhm.
reading envelopes or recognition, handwritten isn't at 100%, just something
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
So, I think that training the people how to use the technology is the key. And that's the
Absolutely.
conduit between the two things.
Right.
Um, and training the people, kind of circling all the way back to the employee experience, right, is
Hmm.
training the people to provide that level of service no matter what's happening on the back end. The back end, very often is the technology,
Right.
but how do you get those people kind of front and center, helping to troubleshoot, and using the technology, and then identifying the trends with the technology to allow you to better utilize and refine whatever it is you are using.
Right. Absolutely. And that's a great thought. So, if I tell me if I'm understanding it correctly and am I summarizing it correctly. So, when we're thinking about technology and people, right? Technology is doesn't overtake people, right? It assists people. And in the age of AI, where everything is technology and we're talking big about it, but essentially, it is to make your job more efficient, right? It's still a human touch, which is big because somebody has to use the technology to still do the job, right? In our mail rooms, a truck came in, and you can take the technology to do dockside function, but it's actually the people who are doing the dockside function, right? You still need people. The
Correct.
technology won't operate itself, right? So the synergy is really, really important, and both play a key role. Like technology can give you data and it will give you analytics, but somebody has to look at that data and take informed decisions, right? And that's where people come in, and that's where we can actually collaborate and drive success.
And I don't think the technology. I think there's a misconception around technology that it always reduces headcount.
Right. Hmm.
And when you go, and that's, I mean, there are times that that is correct because you are making something more efficient, or you're identifying that how you're operating isn't efficient,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
So I think technology can help to identify trends, but it's definitely not coming in to reduce headcount by 80% or 90%. That's just, to your point, like you need both because someone has to do the scanning or has to do the pulling. But it really, I do think that that is sort of a misconception with when people hear technology, they say, oh, we're going to bring this in and we're going to save all this money and labor. And that's just not always the case.
Right.
And they have to look at the just really the cost of business, not necessarily the cost of the items.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And I think that also helps us drive home the point that this is the backbone of the business. If you're not investing here, it's costing you somewhere else,
Correct.
right? It's not essential. The people and technology here are essential to run facilities, and you don't get by not investing properly here. There's somewhere else that you are it's costing you more, right? And it's just the fact, and the collaboration helps you see that, see the numbers, and take informed decisions.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've seen that a lot too.
Yeah, absolutely, I see that a lot. And that's why I think this conversation is really helping. And you and I are both passionate about this world, right? And how can we make it better? So, the more and more when I hear and see that we have to continuously justify that facility management is actually essential function and it's a backbone, um, I am really I want to start this conversation with you, but continue having this conversation till we actually drive it home that, yeah, we need to treat it as an essential function, and this needs to be a boardroom conversation.
It really does.
So let's dive into purpose driven leadership. So tell me, what does that mean for you, and how do you apply that in your conversations with people? And I also want to learn really more about how do you build these great relationships, but we'll dive that into later.
I mean, for me, purpose-driven relation management is just, you know, it's first of all thinking about what is the purpose,
Right.
right? Like,
Mhm.
it's okay to have a goal in a relationship,
Right.
and in management. So I always think like, what is, and I do ask people, or I do state like, the desired goal of today, or the desired goal of us to meet is to X, Y, and Z,
Hmm.
to make sure that there's an alignment. Because whether you're managing or building a relationship, if I'm thinking I'm doing one thing and someone's expecting something else, they're spending the entire time with me wondering what is going on.
Right. Is she
So,
trying to
so
sell me something? Is she trying
yeah,
to
like,
upsell me
or
something?
why am I
Yeah.
here? Or I thought this
Right.
wasn't. So they're either they're distracted or preoccupied or confused. So that to me is the first thing, and I think that there's a lot of different purposes,
Hmm.
right? I mean, I'm in sales, but it's not. I actually just said to someone that I was working with to train them in learning how to be a salesperson, and I said, well, what's the goal of why you're calling them?
Right.
And they said to sell them something, and I was like, that's not the goal. The purpose is just to get them to like you, to want to talk to you again.
Right.
And so when I reframed it like that for this individual, it changed when they were trying to reach out to someone.
Oh my God. That is so, that is great. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you.
And it's such a beautiful way to think about it. And I think that's where great relationships are formed, right? That one, clear is kind, right? You establish a clear goal for the meeting so that everybody has a clear expectation. And then you're starting with trust, right? I trust why you're here. I trust why are we having this conversation. And then you're just trying to understand what is their need, and hoping to build that rapport with them so that they would want to talk to you again.
Yeah, I mean, I do think to your other question of, how do you develop relationships? I think no one I always leave a piece of myself with everyone I talk to.
Yeah.
My kids are mortified by it, mind you, because I tell my whole life to everyone. But I think that when there's no pressure to have to close or sell,
Hmm.
and you're just saying, to your point, like, let's just talk as two humans
Right.
for a while. I'm fine speaking to someone for a month, 2 months, and I tell everyone, like, with what I do, it is very much a marathon.
Hmm.
So you have to want to stay in touch with me and not see my name and go, oh, I'm not going to pick up for a very, very long time. But I think part of that is leaving a little piece of yourself with that person. And in time, what I find is, if you're meant to have the relationship and potentially work with someone, or maybe get their business, or maybe just get the chance to bid,
Hmm.
um, they'll eventually, if it's meant to happen, they will eventually start giving you pieces of their life, because that's just how it happens. Um, and then all of a sudden you turn around and that person is not just a customer, and not just a prospect. They're a friend. Um, they're a confidant. They're a mentor. They're a lot of other things. They're not just sort of a dollar sign. And for me, that's the most important. I mean, I have clients that I sold to, or who were my customers from 20 years ago,
Hmm.
and if I called them today, they'd still see me and say nice things about me. And that to me is the biggest indicator, is that they didn't just buy something and go away, and I don't go away either.
Right. Oh my God, Faine, that is so beautiful. You won't believe I'm getting chills from that. But that is real wisdom. And I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think that really, that also differentiates the misconception about salespeople, right? That you are here to sell me something, and then I will not know where you are, who you are, and you don't care. You're just
Right.
trying to sell. And really, nobody wants to just be with those people who just want to sell you, right? But
Right.
this is beautiful. And it also helps us and our listeners just have a broader view of yes, our goal is to find if you have a need for what I'm selling, but our relationship is going to go far beyond that. And we'll be in touch for months and months. So it doesn't need to be unpleasant for anybody. And I absolutely love the fact that you're saying I leave a piece of myself with everybody I talk to. Thank you.
Oh gosh, I really do. But I will say that I do think that there are an unfortunate number of people who sell people things, and then there are people that I think are career, to your point, relationship builders or salespeople. And I don't know what it was about my upbringing. I oddly enough, my two sisters are in sales, and they approach it. We're all in very different kinds of sales, but we all approach it the same way. And in addition, some of my best friends who have been friends, competitors, coworkers also approach it the same. And I've seen the same level of success um, based on the personality trait and the approach more so than the product.
Hmm.
And so it is something and thank you for saying that, because I do think when people hear salespeople, they immediately,
Yeah, they crunch and they're
and
like,
look,
oh,
and I will tell you, having called on facilities managers for a better part of my career, they get inundated with calls,
mhm.
like so many. But I can tell you a quick story if we have time, which
Yes,
is
please.
during
I love.
COVID, I had a call with someone that I know in procurement said, oh, when I left, there were these three other people that also went to other companies. You should call them. So I, of course, was so grateful for that, right? That to me
Mhm.
showed really that they felt comfortable. So I called a woman during COVID. I'll never forget. I was sitting on my porch. It was a beautiful day. And somehow this woman and I had like the best conversation about children and slip. I don't know if you know what a slip and slide is.
Are those the water slides?
Yes, it's like a word.
Yeah, yeah.
So we had this great conversation, and I hung up and I said, I'm getting that business. We
Mhm.
are going to meet when COVID is over. We're going to be like best friends, this whole thing. And do you know, I never heard from her again.
Oh my
Countless voicemails, emails, LinkedIn notes, but I never
God.
got discouraged, and I just didn't take it personally. And just last week, I got an email for a bid, and I responded and I said, yes, I don't know if you remember me. We had this, what I thought was a lovely conversation many years back during COVID. And she said, I saw your name. I was so very excited. I didn't want to put it on the formal email, the formal email that I'm so happy that we've reconnected. I've just been in a million directions. And so to me,
Oh my
it
God.
was so nice that she actually remembered this one call during probably one of the craziest times personally and professionally for her, and the details of that call and that conversation.
Mhm.
And so that to me, like I said, is kind of where I always go back to is maybe she'll buy from me, maybe she won't, but I have a feeling we'll stay in touch, and who knows what'll happen in the future.
Oh my God, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I think this is great. And that's why you are a relationship builder, right? And I think you will continue to be successful because people buy from salespeople only once and then you're done, right?
Right.
If you're trying to sell someone something that they don't need or it's not a value, you can do that mistake once,
That's true.
right? It's not, they will not come back to you and it's not a relationship because they know you sold them something, right? You can make that mistake once. So the human element to sales and moreover just relationship building where we're trying to understand what you actually need and are we solving the right problems. It's so beautiful.
Oh, thanks. I have to say, I love the emotional and psychological part of selling.
Hmm.
To me is more important than what I'm selling. It's just human nature
Right.
and finding that connection to someone. Um, and that to me is what I think is so important. I mean, it's how you and I met, right?
Yeah,
So,
totally. And I was just gonna say that that's my story for you. The first time we met, I was so impressed and I loved the human angle, right? And I didn't feel like I'm meeting a regular salesperson who's just in their zone. They're trying to sell you something or they're trying to see how can I benefit from this, right? We're just having a wonderful conversation and we're sharing insights, and I ended up learning something, and I love that.
Oh, thank you.
And also, I think what drives me also the human component to everything, right? Whether it's leadership, running a company, or a products or innovation in technology, right? It all dives down to people because, and how do you connect with them? And what problems are you trying to solve with them, right? So I'm also, I consider myself a student of leadership, and I'm very driven by the emotional component of how do you lead with people, uh, how do you come across to them, how do you really help people drive success, whether it's for customers, partners, or your whole team, right? And I hope that we both can continue talking about it and really help each other in that
I
respect.
will say that comes across in your social media.
Thank you. Yeah,
You're welcome. I
that's
do.
one.
I look forward to seeing what the posts are, and they're always human driven, not company or product driven. And so, it just exudes from you for your whole organization.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's the goal. And I feel like just meeting the like minded people like you actually helps me going with that as well. Okay, let's dive deep into if you were to give one advice to our facility management community, what would that be?
Oh, gee. Well, I'm not a facilities manager, so I'm not sure that I can give them any advice on their job per se.
Uh-huh.
And I am a salesperson, so take this with a grain of salt, but I would say be open minded.
Hmm.
Be open minded if, who you look at from a vendor perspective, a technology perspective. And I understand because I do have so many dear, dear friends who have become friends, who are in, facilities for massive organizations. And I know how busy their inboxes get. I know how many phone calls they get. Um, but I can tell you that I think I've delivered food for thought or value to anyone who's opened the door. And I don't think anyone has regretted um, taking those few minutes to speak to me. And that would be my one piece of advice. I know it's hard to sort of discern who to take the time for and who not to take the time for, except to say there's always time, there's always some amount of new time, right? And the last thing you want to do is stop listening to new people, because you just miss too many new and cool ideas and food for thought or best practices from other peers. Um, so just be open minded.
That's a great advice. I hope our listeners benefit from it. Is there anything the last you want to leave the conversation with?
Not at all. I mean, I will say thank you so much. It's a pleasure to know you, and it was really it meant a lot to me that you asked me to do this, and that I hope that I brought anyone some value, and happy to answer any questions as people watch this.
Thank you so much, Faine. I feel the same. Thank you so much. I really respect and believe that you are a great relationship builder and that you bring in a lot of value, um, in and a lot of value, knowledge, and information when people talk to you. And I have learned a great deal
Thank
just
you.
knowing you. Thank you so much. And yes, if you have any questions for Faine, feel free to comment on our chat and get in touch. Yeah. I hope you all get a lot of value as much as I've gotten from this conversation. Thank you, Faine. I hope to have you
Thank you.
again on this. Thank you so much.
Take care.